We are live. We are live October 30th. October 30th, 2022. Week 9 Aftermath. What happened in college football? We're going to be talking all about it and what's going to happen next week, Week 10. Tennessee, number 2 versus Georgia, number 1. Wow. Doesn't get any bigger than that. You all know how much I love Tennessee going into this season. I said they'd be a top 10 team by the end of the season. I did not think they would be number 2 in the country with a chance. With a chance to win it all, let's be frank. Hendon Hooker, that great offense. Tennessee Volunteers. We also have Clemson versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame's getting it going pretty good here. I think Clemson's vulnerable. I've said that from the beginning of the season. How right I was about Tennessee is how wrong I was about Clemson, however. So we're going to be talking about all that. We're going to be talking about Big 12. Brett Yormark's new deal. The deal he got done with his current media partners, Fox and ESPN. It's a big deal. I'm getting comments saying this is not a big deal, that this deal was weak. Come on now. Come on. Let's be honest. When Oklahoma and Texas decided to leave for the SEC in 2025, when that was announced in July of 2019, none of us thought that the Big 12 would get this type of deal, would stay together, would expand by 4 schools, and with those 4 schools having 12 schools, that they would get this kind of deal. They're not even going to take a pay cut. Now, we know inflation is helping them out, right? Just like it helps out Big Ten and everybody else. When it comes to getting a new deal, you get more money. But even with that, nobody thought that they would strike a media deal of $31 million per year per school for their media money, which is going to come out to be about $55 million in conference payouts. Possibly. We do not know, because we do not know the revenue each conference is getting in the new college expanded playoffs. In fact, I have a sign up right here that says College Football Expanded Playoff Revenue Distribution Model. We talked about that in the last live show. We're going to talk about it in this live show because we have a lot of questions, right? What's going to happen next? I think what happens next is largely determined on how this thing gets solved. This is the huge elephant that's in the room. How do the conference commissioners in Notre Dame figure out how to splice up the 10 FBS conferences? And Notre Dame, how do they figure out how to slice up this new humongous revenue pie? How they decide that, how that ends up, will go a long ways into figuring out what is next for the Pac-12, the Big 12, ACC. We're going to get into that. I know we did it on our live show. We broke it down, the numbers. I'll go through the numbers a little bit here. But I just wanted this to be up for the whole live show because every time we think about an issue in regards to future realignment, conference payouts, man, a lot of it is going to have to do with how this is settled. We'll go into that. First of all, let me do some cleanup bookkeeping here real quick as we get ready for people to enter into the live chat. Everybody, please smash that like button. Smash it. It helps with the algorithm so much at YouTube. Please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Share the video with your family and friends. We'll go through that again. But please smash that like button when you come in. And just let me do a little bit of a bookkeeping. Let me clean up some stuff, like I always seem to have to do when we start this. Okay, so that's good. It's going to be a big show tonight. Lots of breaking news. Huge news. We did an episode this morning. We'll go through some of that. We're going to be going to the Week 10 games. that's coming up and what just happened in week 9. But the big news of the day is really the Big 12 striking that new media deal. Yormark got it done. And again, put down your comments down. Put down your comments. If you disagree with me, I've already seen a whole bunch of comments that disagree with me on our last episode that was this morning. Let me also get this out to Twitter. And let me know if the audio and the visual is good so far in this live show. Appreciate it. Okay, we started a little early. Give people a chance to climb on in. I don't want anybody to miss anything. Let's get this advertised on Twitter. Just give me a moment, everybody. Appreciate your patience. We got a lot to get to. So just everyone settle in, grab your favorite beverage, your bag of chips. All right. Looks good. Daniel's in the house. Texas or Busted is in the house. And Mireya, the moderator who rules with an iron fist, is in the house. That is my wife. Okay. Do we look good? Daniel is present. Texas or Busted comes out with a comment already. Congratulations on huge TV deal. Big 12 got the bag, got the security, got the exposure from Fox ESPN, and get to take another bite from the apple tree in 6 years. Win, 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 win. I think, Texas, you're correct. I think it's a win, 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 and another win on top of that. And let's get to that right now, shall we? Look, let me do my little monologue here. Hopefully it doesn't stretch out too long because I know there's going to be a lot of comments in the comment screen. Let's just hit briefly the SBJ article again. Some people haven't watched our episode of this morning. But Texas or Busted is correct. It's a win, 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 win. I also think it opens the door for Big 12 to possibly get that fourth TV window. To get into that fourth TV media window that Brett Yormark has said out in the open. He has said it publicly. You got to remember something. Big 12 wasn't even supposed to be in this position. They weren't even supposed to start being able to negotiate with Fox and ESPN in an exclusive negotiating window with your current media partners. That's how it always goes. They weren't even supposed to be able to do this. They were still scheduled to start doing this 16, 18 months out. ESPN and Fox gave them the go-ahead, started negotiating. A lot of people said Big 12 shouldn't strike a deal right now. They should wait. They should wait another 16, 18 months. They might get more money. They might not. As Bob Thompson on Twitter, he's a great follow. I believe he said like a week ago, I'm paraphrasing the gentleman. He said on Twitter, you don't always get a bigger deal when you wait. And with the economy, the world economy, who knows, right? But this gives Yormark the ability. Remember, he hasn't hidden what he wants to do. Like we've talked about here in Peek Around the Corner before. You've got to believe, sometimes you got to believe what people are telling you. Not everything's a grand conspiracy. Some people actually tell you what they're thinking. And that is what Yormark has done. He wants to expand. He may not be able to expand. Kevin Warren wanted to expand beyond 16 schools. Remember that. And we talked about it. It was a go or no-go decision window, right? August 15th, October 15th. In that window, it was a no-go. They decided no-go. He didn't have the votes, didn't have the money, didn't have the wherewithal to get it done for now, right? It was a go or no-go for launch. It wasn't a go for launch. It was a go It was a go or no go for Lodge. Same thing with Brett Yormark, but he wants to nationalize the Big 12. Pac-12 can't nationalize the conference, their conference, or they're not trying to anyways. It doesn't seem that they're willing to go there. Their geographic limitations, right? But Big 12 wants to go all the way from east all the way to west, and he wants to get into that fourth window. Getting the deal done now on October 30th helps him do just that. Because now he has the numbers. And he's got a pro rata clause in the contract. A pro rata clause, it's been announced. I asked that question. I put it out there, and a couple reporters said, yes, they got the clause. They got it done. It's in there. That means that they can, it's easier. It doesn't mean it's an automatic. Nothing's an automatic. But it gets easier for the Big 12 to be able to get ESPN and Fox to agree upon an expansion of the conference. That they don't, it's a bridge. It's like it's the ability for the Big 12 not to dilute themselves in expansion. They've already, here's the thing. We talked about this on the last live show. We said, if Big 12 gets this done, like today, tomorrow, next week, man, that's a big indication that Brett Yormark has had. Of course, he's had these discussions with ESPN and Fox Sports, saying, he's telling us, he's surely telling them, right? Man, if we get this deal done, I've got School A, School B, School D, School E. They've called me already. Or we anticipate them to call us to check us out, to see if they want into our conference. Remember, conference realignment always starts with the school calling the conference first. Has Brett Yormark has he received calls yet from the four corner schools of the Pac-12? Here at Peek Around the Corner, we can't say yes. We don't have any intel on that. We would highly suggest that San Diego State has given Big 12 a call and the Pac-12 a call. Of course they have. And it's the perfect storm for the San Diego State. We'll get that into later in the show. But Big 12, so Brett Yormark is sitting here going, if we get this deal done, I'm gonna be able to project these sorts of numbers to candidate A, B, and C, right? ESPN, Fox, and they say, yep, let's get the deal done. Pro rata clauses in, bam, and here we are. The deal was done. October 30th, it's announced. We don't know. Maybe it was done a couple of days ago. Maybe they sign it a week from now. But it was announced today that the deal is done. This, for me, it's a great indication that Brett Yormark believes that he's going to be able to get that fourth TV window. That there's going to be an addendum to this contract. Right? That there's going to be something extra potentially, because he has said it. If he wasn't going to have a chance to do it, then he probably would have waited. But no, the deal was done now. So what happens next? That's why I have this up on the board. For those who are late to our, who just came in to our live show, I've got it on the board. Conference football, and I will get to your comments. I apologize. Just doing the monologue. We got to do it. We got to set the table for you all to eat on, right? College football expanded playoff revenue distribution model. That's the elephant in the room. It's gigantic. I'm telling you, Peek Around the Corner is giving you all a peek around the corner tonight. This is the issue. That's the issue. That's going to decide so much what happens in the next 12 months, in the next 5 years. How do they distribute the playoff revenue when this happens? When the college football playoff gets expanded with all this huge new revenue, how does it get distributed? Let me go over some numbers. Real quick. Right now, currently in the college football playoffs, the revenue gets distributed 80% of the revenue, and I think it's like $470 million a year, right? ESPN pays it out. There's 3 games, right? There's 4 playoff teams. There's 3 games, games content. $470 million. 80% of the college football playoff money goes to the Power 5. 20% goes to the G5 conferences. Okay, so that's about $75 million to each conference, to each Power 5 conference. Okay, hang with me on this. I know these are numbers, it's dry, but we have to understand this before we get into the question of Yormark expanding to 2 to 4 Pac-12 schools, or not being able to expand with them, expanding with San Diego State plus another school, or the Pac-12 expanding with San Diego State plus another school. We've got to get through this issue first. So that's the current model. Each conference of the Power 5 gets equal amount of money. It's about $75 million a year. G5, they get 20% of the $470 million. That gets distributed evenly among those G5 conferences. But going forward, if this college football expansion, playoff expansion happens in 2024, how does this over $1 billion get distributed among the conferences? If you take, we don't know what that number is going to be, right? We do not know. But let's say, because this was reported on, it was speculated on, we went through this in our last live show, $2.2 billion a year, right? Let's just say that's the number. Let's just say it's the number. Nobody knows, right? It hasn't gone up for open bid. ESPN's going to control a lot of that content, but some of those playoff games are going to be open for bid. Fox Sports is probably going to jump right in. Amazon might make a huge bid. We do not know. But let's take the $2.2 billion as factual, which it's not. But for the sake of discussion, well, that's $1.76 billion for the Power 5 schools if it remains an 80%, 20% split among Power 5, G5. That would be $352 million per conference for each Power 5 conference. But is it going to be distributed equally to each conference going forward? We do not know, and we need to know the answer. Because obviously, if there's no incentive to expand the members in your conference, if you don't get any more money, like you don't in the current deal, then maybe you shouldn't expand the numbers. Because the number is so large now, and the revenue is going to be so big when it comes to the college football playoffs, the expanded playoff revenue, that the difference between having a 10-school conference and a 16-school conference is $13 million to go into each school. In other words, if you take the example, that's $2.2 billion overall, that 80% of that's still going to go to the Power 5, that $352 million is going to go to each of the 5 Power 5 conferences. A 10-member conference, like the Pac-12 currently, would get $35 million to each school just on this distribution model. While SEC and the Big Ten conferences would get $22 million per school in that revenue distribution model. That's a big difference. So would the Big 12 even want to expand with other Pac-12 schools if the new revenue distribution model is the same as it is now? I happen to believe it's not going to be. I happen to believe that the more schools you have in the conference, the more money you're going to get in the distribution model. That's not how it is now. But I think that's how it is going forward. We shall see. We shall see. This is a massive issue. That's your peek around the corner for tonight. That's going to settle a lot of things. And here is, and I'm going to get to your comments right now. Here's the kicker in all this. Here's the kicker in all this. If they want to have a college football expanded playoffs of 12 schools for 2024. This has to get decided like right now. It has to get decided in the next month. Next 2 months, it's got to be decided now. So we're going to find out real quick how this goes. What do you think? How do you think it goes? Do you think that they'll just maintain that each conference gets, each Power 5 conference will get the same amount of money, revenue? Like the Pac-12 will get $350 million, SEC will get $350 million, and then of course you get extra money when it comes to who actually qualifies. Like currently, I think it's $6 million to each conference when the school makes it to the college football playoffs. I believe that's the number. So there's going to be some number attached to how many schools you get to the SEC gets 4 schools in the playoffs. They're going to get more money than another conference that only gets 1 school in the playoffs. But that flat fee, that fee that everybody gets, because everyone's going to get money here in this new expanded college football, right? It's going to go fill the coffers of all these athletic programs, the 130 FBS schools plus Notre Dame, okay? But how does it get distributed? What's the formula? That is the big hang up right now as all these guys are talking, right? What is going to be the model? That's why we have it up on the board tonight, because it's a huge looming issue and it's going to be decided quick. Let's get to your questions. Then we'll get back to a couple more stories on this. Isaiah Jimenez, nice for you to be in the house. Daniel, they had to get it done before the Pac-12, I believe. I don't know if they had to get it done before the Pac-12, but it gives them a certain advantage over the Pac-12 that they wouldn't have if they would have waited 16 months. Is there a chance the Pac-12 gets a deal? Now, these windows, again, people are on Twitter, on the message boards. The Pac-12's lost some exclusive good primetime real estate windows because they didn't get the deal done with Fox and ESPN. Now that might help them with the dollars. Can they get a combination of ESPN and Amazon, and then with that combination lift their conference payouts for each school, the media deal, to be like $35 million? It could happen. But if it does, even if it does, Pac-12 lost the exposure war to Big 12. I don't think Pac-12 has any chance at all to get a deal done with ESPN and Fox, where it's just those two media companies. I think they have to get a streaming deal done. Now, a lot of you say, and some Pac-12 fans, and I don't blame them, say, well, that's a good thing. Streaming is the future. And if they're willing to pay more money now, that's great. We'll get a relationship with them. That's one way of looking at it. In fact, we'll go through an article right now by Joe Canzano. He basically makes that argument today. But streaming is not on the come yet. It's not there yet. They're going to if the Pac-12 makes a deal with ESPN and Amazon, and let's say it turns out to be for $34 million per school in the media money, they're still going to get lit up on the exposure question. They're not going to have the exposure that the Big 12 has. ESPN and Fox are your traditional linear cable or channel outlets, right? They still own college football when it comes to distribution of its content, most valuable content. It has its most valuable windows. Maybe years from now, streaming gets there. But it's not there yet. It's a huge gamble for what it may not even be a gamble. George Kliavkoff may not have any other choice but to have a combination of ESPN and Amazon, or ESPN and Google or ESPN and Apple TV. This might be the only pathway he has left. And does that give him a deal for 10 schools for, $300 million, which would be $30 million per year? Could, and maybe more. Maybe they can match the Big 12 conference payouts, but they can't match a Big 12's. They can't match Big 12's exposure. Big 12 is the only conference going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Big 12 is the only conference going forward that's going to maintain a dual partner relationship, media partners with Fox Sports and ESPN. ACC, we all know, it's all ACC's all ESPN until at least 2036. SEC is all ESPN into 2034. Big Ten dropping ESPN. No longer will have a relationship with ESPN. Big Ten is going with Fox, CBS, NBC, NBC, and Peacock. Big 12, Fox, ESPN. And we don't know what's going to happen to Pac-12. I would wager that Pac-12 is not on Fox Sports anymore after the current media contract runs out in 2024. But my goodness, the Big 12 has the advantage over the Pac-12 in exposure. Now, could I and many people be wrong? Maybe streaming really hits 2 years from now. Maybe it becomes really valuable in the exposure space as well. But I don't think so. Not yet. Not yet. The Big Ten got an offer from Amazon for the new media deal that was more than NBC, more than CBS. But they still went with NBC and CBS because of the exposure ramifications. Come on, they've looked at this thing, right? And Big Ten was looking at, could they get Amazon to pay for that extra money that maybe so they could expand in this window of time? It looks like it didn't happen. But Pac-12 I think, is the one that's truly gambling. Not the Big 12 by making this deal now. This gives Yormark the pen to paper that he can show interested candidates, after they call him, which has probably already happened, and say, hey, now this is what we can do for you. Compare that to what Pac-12 can do for you, and let's talk business. All right, let's get back to the questions. We have we have so much to go through. I mean, first of all, congratulations to Houston, UCF, BYU, Cincinnati. The deal that Big 12 just struck has to be an unbelievable feeling for those four universities, their fan bases, their alumni, their faculty. This is incredible. From the money that they're making now, what is it, $7 million for Tier 1, 2-tier in the AAC? For them to go from that to what they're going to be receiving when they start into the Big 12 is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And let's be clear on something. The University of Central Florida is going to be making more money per conference payout than Florida State and Miami of Florida going forward. Unless ESPN agrees to bump up the ACC pay for the Tier 1, Tier 2 money, UCF is going to be making more than the ACC. Remember, ACC conference payouts are in the low 30s, just like the Big 12, and that includes the ACC network money. That's all piled in there. UCF is going to be making a little bit more than Florida State and Miami, Florida. Now, how does that make Florida State and Miami, Florida feel? Let me know in the comments what you think they're feeling right now tonight, the administration. Okay, let's get to more questions. RW, if the Big 12 is getting around $51 million to school without Texas, Oklahoma, then we are looking around $100 million with them. if what Bowlesby said last year is accurate. I don't know who we are, what you're talking about we are. I don't know what school, I'm sorry, RW. I don't know what school you, or what conference, what school you cheer for. I'll get to the next question. David M. So what can the Pac-12 do? Are the Four Corner schools going to the Big 12? San Diego State. So if the Big 12 take the Four Corner schools, will the Big 10 move on? Stanford, California, Oregon, Washington. Sean Sang says, what will the ACC do? Let's get to David M. What can the Pac-12 do? Well, first of all, I happen to believe the money is not going to be that big a difference. Whatever deal they decide to do, right, with Amazon, let's just say it's Amazon, ESPN, the money's probably not going to make that big a difference. Again, I think the exposure, Pac-12 is going to get crushed when it comes to the windows, when it comes to the ratings for the next 6 years. I think Big 12 is going to crush the Pac-12. I think the exposure race was lost by the Pac-12. Remember, the Pac-12, they could have struck a deal with ESPN and Fox. They could have done it. They were negotiating with them long before Big 12 could negotiate with them. But they didn't get the deal done. Why didn't they get the deal done? Because George Kliavkoff wasn't getting the offer that some schools in that conference wanted, like probably Oregon and Washington, right? Maybe, I don't know what the number is. There's been some reports on it. We could not get any intel on it. But what if it's $25 million a year for each Pac-12 school? Or what if it's $30 million? And that just wasn't enough. Plus, the issue with you asked what the Pac-12 can do? I mean, will Oregon and Washington even sign a decent grant of rights? Because if they don't, then they can't get the elevated TV. They lose money on it, right? These media partners don't want to give these conferences a huge bags of cash when all their schools are not willing to sign the grant of rights, to give over their individual media rights to the conference. And will Oregon and Washington sign a deal like the Big 12 universities are willing to do so for Yormark? I don't think so. In fact, we at Peek Around the Corner told Oregon wouldn't do so. That was way back in episode 52. That was over 30 episodes ago if you missed that episode. So Pac-12, I'm telling you, I don't think George Kliavkoff has many more options. He's probably going to have to cut a streaming deal with ESPN, streaming deal with maybe Amazon and ESPN. Take the number and go with it. Let's get to what George. Let's get to an article here. Canzano, we all know him, right? Pac-12, Oregon. He covers Pac-12. He says Big 12 beats Pac-12 to finish line, but not bottom line. So again, Canzano and others are looking at the money, right? They're not looking at the exposure so much, although he touches upon it on this article. We're just going to go over this real quick. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but here in the article, Big 12 Conference steps in front of the Pac-12 Conference and got its media rights deal done early. It's a 6-year contract with ESPN and Fox, as first reported on Sunday by Sports Business Journal. The total value deal is $2.28 billion. Average annual payout split between members, $380 million. So $380 million per year. Give him credit, Yormark, for doing what he promised he'd do. But it sounds like the Big 12 beat the Pac-12 to the finish line, but not the bottom line. The Big 12's average per school annual payout will be $31.6 million. Quote, we are very confident to beat that number, unquote, a Pac-12 source told me Sunday. So someone told Canzano that Pac-12 is going to beat that $31.6 million. Okay? Pac-12 is still negotiating. The original projections from industry sources placed the annual payouts in the range of $27 to $29 million for the 10 remaining members. That would have put the Pac-12 conference 10-15% below the Big 12, But that was before Amazon waded into the fray. And then I'll just finish off this article by saying, maybe we should see what happens. This is Kazano. But it feels like the Pac-12 could land somewhere in the neighborhood of 32 to 34 million per school. 32, 34 million per school versus Big 12, 31.6 million. If that's the case, that's a Big 12 victory. Because the exposure to set yourself up for the next contract, to give as much exposure to your universities and student athletes for recruiting purposes alone. Big 12 with ESPN and Fox Sports here in the 2020s. That's much better than what the Pac-12 is going to do. Nothing against Amazon. Amazon is a monster. But we're not there yet in the streaming world. We're just not there yet. People are not going to be going looking for Amazon content for college football here. Not for years. I mean, maybe they will pay a little bit more money. But if it's between 32 and 34 million versus 31.6 million for each Big 12 school, and the difference in exposure, Big 12 won this. If it's truly 32 to 34 million that we're looking at for Pac-12 schools, and maybe it's not that much, victory for Big 12. And that's what Arizona and Arizona State and Utah and Colorado have to think about. Again, I don't think if each Pac-12 school makes between 32 and 34 million, I don't think any of those Pac-12 schools are going to move to the Big 12. But what if it's 25 million? What if Amazon says, no, we're backing away, right? And now George Kliavkoff has to make a deal with somebody else like Turner Sports. I don't know. It's my strongly held opinion that Big 12 made the deal now because they know they would have an advantage. I think they know they have the advantage. Remember, they've been talking to Fox Sports and ESPN throughout this. They know if they're going to get the green light to potentially add on schools. So let me get to the questions. Sorry for the big monologue there. Sean, thanks for coming in the house. Again, please, if you just came, please smash that like button. It helps with the algorithm so much at Peek Around the Corner. Smash that like button. Share the video with your family and friends. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. This is College Football's Peek Around the Corner. We talk everything college football. If you want to donate to help us keep the lights on, you can hit that super chat, that $ in the comment screen, and give us a donation. We'll go a deep dive in your comment, even if you're ripping on your humble host, Greg Pflugar. Thank you so much for all your support you've given us in the first 2.5 months of this channel. We appreciate you all so very much. Sean, what will the ACC do? UCF gets $31.6 million annually, while FSU gets $20 million. Clemson and USC can't be happy about that either. Yeah, I went through that a little bit. This is explosive. This is absolutely explosive. There's so much going on with the Pac-12 and the Big 12. We kind of lose sight of where the predicament that the ACC schools in. They're in such a predicament out there in ACC country that their athletic directors are discussing a non-equal revenue distribution model. We talk about this model, that how hard it's going to be for the 10 FBS commissioners in Notre Dame to settle on this. Well, what about the ACC and the model that they're trying to figure out, the non-equal revenue model to help bump up the bigger brands at the expense of other schools in that conference? There's not much the ACC can do. But you're right, Sean. You're right. UCF will be making more per conference payout. Maybe not making more as the entire athletic department, right? FSU, Miami, Florida, they have huge radio deals, signage deals, sponsorship deals. You know, there's more. Conference payouts are just part of your total athletic department's budget. But for UCF to make more money for their conference payout than Miami, Florida, and Florida State, really, it's truly unbelievable, but it's reality. And that's going to cause a big drama inside the ACC. And they knew it was coming. That's why they're talking about this non-equal revenue model, which is absolutely incredible. I think that's Money Vision. I'm not sure. Movie Vision. Or maybe it's Movie Vision. I see you on Twitter. Thanks for joining us. ACC will move to unequal revenue shares moving forward. Yes, and boy, is that a difficult place to be. Man, we had a whole episode on it. We talked about it in a live show. ACC moving to non-equal revenue sharing. That's explosive. Only really bad things can happen. You talk about, what are the metrics that are going to be added into that non-revenue model? Is it just going to be the results on the football field, or are they going to actually throw academics in there? How you do in basketball? Once you get so many variables, once you get so many items in your metrics, it all flattens out anyways, and it doesn't work. These non-equal revenue sharing models just cause pain inside these conferences. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more stuff come out of the ACC. Remember in August, third week in August, I think it was August 20th, August 21st, Florida State's president says that we're going to be real aggressive in conference realignment, that we're spending a lot of time on it. We're getting a lot of help on it. I have no idea if he was talking about crazy scenarios like dissolution or buying out of the Gore or things that we at Peek Around the Corner don't believe can happen. But he was talking about something. And now for UCF to be making more money per year, conference playout, the Big 12 is going to distribute more money to UCF through their bylaws, right? More money to UCF than ACC will distribute to Florida State and to Miami, Florida. Two big brands that have been Power 5 big brands, right? And UCF is going to be making more money. It's a highly explosive situation that we have in the ACC. And there's just been more gasoline put on the fire. More gasoline put on the fire. It's really an unbelievable story. I'm sorry I got so many comments. Again, if you want to make sure if you want to make sure I get to your comment, donate, hit that super chat, hit the $sign, I'll get to your comment, lickety split. Sorry, I won't be able to get to all these because we got so many comments, so many things going on. We still got more stories to get to here. Isaiah Jimenez, how much is the increased exposure worth if you had to put a money value on it? Woo, that's a good question, Isaiah. That's a good question. Boy, that's very hard. I tell you what, I can't answer that question, but it's more than a couple $1 million. Again, Joe Casano, this article, if he thinks Pac-12 getting $32, $34 million per school is better than the Big 12 getting $31.6 million, when you look at the difference in exposure, no, that's a home run by the Big 12. That's a wipeout. That's a blowout. That's a blowout win for the Big 12. And these windows have closed. The Fox Sports in their current media deal with Big Ten from 2017 to 2022 was doing 26 to 27 Big Ten football games a year on Fox and FS1. Going forward, once USC and UCLA will be included, that's 32 games per year. ESPN are not doing CBS anymore after next year, so they're moving content from CBS, that one big game of the year, into ESPN ABC. So the windows, and now with this Big 12 deal, with ESPN and Fox, ESPN gets the biggest games. I don't have it listed like the top 4 games a year, top 6 out of the 8 games, Big 12 games a year. ESPN gets 12 of the top 20, something like that. The conference championship games, whatever. But Big 12 gets a whole, I think it was 26 games, Big 12 games a year for Fox Sports and FS1. All these windows are closing on Pac-12. Even if they make a deal with ESPN, those exclusive windows, they're going to be last on the priority list for ESPN. They're going to be behind SEC, ACC, Big 12. The Pac-12 is at the bottom of the priority list for ESPN. If ESPN and Pac-12 even make a deal with each other. So I can't put a number on it, but it's way more than $1 or $2 million. So Casano he's highlighting the fact that the Pac-12, they might have lost the race to sign the deal, but the bottom line, they're going to come out on top. Man, you got to include the value of exposure when you're talking about who gets out the best on the bottom line. And the Big 12 just smashed the Pac-12 when it comes to exposure. One of the big reasons why Yormark, when he had the opportunity, he struck and got the deal done. Okay, RW, Big 12. For you, so your Big 12 country, I forgot what your question was. I don't know. Getting back to you, Texas, Oklahoma, then we were looking at $100 million with them for each Big 12. I don't know. I'll think about that later. It would be higher, obviously, right? It would be higher than what they're getting now, but I can't really answer that question. Can't wrap my head around that right now. There's too many other things for us to discuss, but thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Tony, why would any school in the ACC agree to take less money? ACC's getting nervous. That's a great question, Tony. So these athletic directors in the ACC are talking about this non-equal revenue sharing. Okay? So they're going to have to vote on it. And what is the incentive for some of these athletic directors to say, sure, okay, Clemson, you can possibly make $5 million more than us here at Boston College. Sure, we'll sign on to it. What's their incentive? Now, some people say the incentive is because dissolution is real. They could dissolve the conference with 8 votes. We shall see. We shall see. But you make a very good question, Tony. What is the incentive for these athletic directors to actually sign this non-equal revenue sharing model? I tell you what, ACC, man, that's a powder keg. That is a powder keg. Grateful Trojan, there's no way the SEC and the Big Ten will share an equal amount with the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-10. What Grateful Trojan is saying, and we're getting back to this again, the big elephant in the room, college football expanded playoff revenue distribution model. Right now, today, during this current contract, playoff expansion contract with ESPN for $470 million a year, 80% of that goes to the Power 5 schools, and it gets just distributed equally among those Power 5 schools. Not counting who actually qualifies for the playoffs, you get extra money for that. But right off the bat, each conference gets about $75 million per year. Is that how it's going to be going forward? Grateful Trojan says no. SEC and the Big Ten will not be for the equal distribution because they're the most valuable conferences. They have the most eyeballs on those conferences. They have the most teams in those conferences. Is the SEC really going to agree on a playoff revenue model that puts each SEC school $13 million less than each Pac-12 school. Because that's what's going to happen. About 13. We don't know the exact number, but it's going to be less because there's more members in the SEC. There's 6 more now than in the Pac-12 currently. Again, that's the big elephant in the room. How that gets decided, how that happens. I got to believe that Mr. Trojan here is correct in the chat room. I can't see the Big Ten, the SEC, just throwing up their hands and saying, yes, we'll do it the same way we've been doing it, and each Power 5 conference gets the same amount of money. I don't see it happening. Especially, when you had Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, talking about during the media days. This was months ago. He's not using this language anymore. But he basically said, man, if we can't get this playoff thing done the way that we want it to get done, we go our own way. We'll make our own SEC playoff. We'll make our own galaxy, our own universe of college football, because they have the power to do so. So, again, man, that's a huge, huge question that I think is looming over every decision. In other words, really, in my opinion, at Peek Around the Corner, I don't know how any more decisions, sure, San Diego State and the Big 12 can talk, Pac-12 and San Diego State can talk. Let's just use that for an example. But how far the talks can go when this hasn't been decided yet? Who knows? This could have played a major point in Big Ten in their decision window if they should expand beyond 16, because they don't know how that's going to get distributed. Is there an incentive? Is it a disincentive to go from 16 to 18 schools because you're going to be splitting that pie up 2 more pieces and you're not going to be getting that extra revenue? Playoff revenue. So we don't know if it's going to be disincentive or an incentive to grow your conference under this revenue model, because that is going to be such a huge amount of money for each of these conferences. And then if you look towards G5, same thing with them, man. At this point, if let's say you do a $2.2 billion, let's say it's $2.2 billion annually, every single year, playoff revenue. And let's say the G5 conferences, those 5 conferences get 20% to split among each other. That would be $440 million. That'd be $88 million per G5 conference. $88 million for each one of those conferences to distribute among their members. So now, is each of those G5 in this new deal, are they going to get the equal amount no matter how many members they have in their conference? Because it could be a big difference between the payouts to Conference USA, to the Sun Belt, for example. Big question, and it has to get decided on, and it has to get decided on soon. If we want the expanded college football playoffs to happen in 2024, this has to be decided now, soon, in a month or so. So however that happens, man, whatever that decision is, and what if they can't make a decision? What if that's the issue that pushes out the playoffs to 2026? What does that mean going forward? What does that mean going forward? So, we'll be looking at it. Keep with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Subscribe to our channel because we're going to be talking about this issue for the next weeks until this gets decided on. Okay, let's get back to the questions. Can't get through all of them, sorry. If you want to make sure I get to your questions, hit that super chat button, that $. Please smash the like button. Subscribe to our channel. Appreciate all of you guys. Movie Time Blues. Greg, have you read the article about the retiring president of Purdue on the Big Ten and his thoughts on athletes becoming employees. I know he said that that's Mitch Daniels, correct? I know he said something to the effect of Big Ten not expanding now, which we said on October 12th. Definite pause button. Definite no-go on the decision to expand now. I don't know what he said about the athletes becoming employees, what his thoughts are. I'm guessing he was against it. But let me know in the comments section, Movie Time Blues. I did not see what President Daniels said about that. Lorenzo Haynes, Amazon doesn't overpay. Well, it depends how you look at it. Depends how you look at it. Now, they paid huge for NFL Thursday night, way above the other competitors as it was reported. Don't know if that's actually true. Amazon went big time for Thursday night NFL. They went over the top on NBC and CBS to get Big Ten content. They offered more than the $350 million per year that NBC and CBS offered. So they know they have to pay more to get the best level content because they are streaming, because they're not on the come yet. They don't offer the top level exposure like the linear networks. That's not reality yet. It might become reality 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or maybe it never does, but it's not right now. So Amazon does have to, quote unquote, overpay to expand their portfolio to get into college sports. They really do. Well, I should back up. Maybe they don't have to get the Pac-12 content, because where else is Pac-12 going to go at this point? Maybe Apple TV. SBJ has made a couple comments on Google lately. Can Google get into it? How about Turner Network, TBS, TNT? They used to be in the college football. They used to have college football content, football, I think back in the 80s, I believe. What if they get back into it? That's the Discovery, Warner Brothers. They're under that umbrella, that merger, right? Warner Brothers, Discovery, Turner Network, TBS, TNT, HBO Max, I believe, is under that umbrella. I believe so. So can Pac-12 get them into the game to bid on their content? Again, though, even if it's Turner, that's not Fox Sports and ESPN, and that's the problem. At some point, somebody in Pac-12 country, some reporter, some writer is going to write down, not so sure about how much good exposure Pac-12 is going to be getting here in the next 6 years. Someone's going to say it, but they haven't done it yet. Okay. Craig Kirch, thanks for coming into the house. Streaming is a horrible way to go. There are only around 40 games on Saturday on TV. Why would fans pay more for a streaming service, especially concerning Pac-12 is the fifth best conference? Well, fortunately for the Pac-12, I think Amazon Prime Video is already in 100 million homes. So it's there. The problem with streaming is, and I think you're getting to it, is there's so many games on TV. So many games on linear. That, it's easy to flip around, right? CBS, ABC, NBC, ESPN, ESPN2, right? Bam, bam, bam with the remote control. And then suddenly you want to go to streaming. You have to, it's not an easy bam, you're on Amazon. You kind of forget it's even there. So that's the problem. That's the exposure problem. It isn't that Amazon is not in enough homes. It's just we are not conditioned to watch college football on Amazon. And Amazon's going to have to, they know that. We weren't conditioned to watch NFL Thursday night on Amazon. But see, that's the But Thursday night NFL football, that's the only game going on Thursday night. So people who want to watch football, professional football, NFL, don't have to flip back and forth from streaming to linear network, streaming to linear net. They can just stay on Amazon. But during the Saturday college football slate, when you got Big Ten and Fox, CBS and NBC, when you have SEC on ESPN and ABC, when you got ACC on ESPN and ABC, who's going to be flipping over to Amazon? And another thing, there's great universities in the Pac-12, outstanding universities in the Pac-12. The fans who are the fans of the schools are very intense, but there's not enough of them. They don't put eyeballs to the TV to watching their games. Pac-12 doesn't watch Pac-12. Pac-12 country doesn't watch Pac-12 content like they do in the Big Ten, the SEC. So, Amazon, this is going to be their foray, their entry into college football, sports, live content, and they're going to go with Pac-12. They're not going to get the eyeballs, right? They're not going to have an intense fan base on average for all of them. There are intense fan bases in the Pac-12. Oregon, Washington, Utah, USC, not going forward USC, but you understand. But in the entirety of the Pac-12 consumer, there's not a lot of strong intensity. So Amazon, these Pac-12 schools, they're going to be rolling the die. They're going to be rolling the dice if they go with ESPN and Amazon, because they're going to lose out big time in exposure versus the Big 12. Big time. Okay. Two Guns. Thanks for coming in to the house. As an FSU fan, it feels awful. It has to feel awful. FSU, Florida State Seminoles, national champions. Winston, incredible tradition. Deion Sanders, unbelievable. Tallahassee, Florida State Seminoles. And they're going to be making less in conference payout, ACC conference payout, than UCF will in the Big 12. It's really unheard of. If you would have told me that 3 years ago, even though I knew the ACC was in trouble with extending this grant of rights all the way to 2036, if you would have told me UCF would come up from the ashes, from the AAC, go to the Big 12, bam, 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 and make more money than Florida State, I would have said you were crazy. But here we are. Here we are. It's got to feel horrible. It's got to feel horrible. But Two Guns, the only thing I can say to you is, man, your Florida State, your president, he understands. He understands the situation. He wasn't the guy who signed these long extension, grant of rights extension. He wasn't the person who put you in this place. He might be the person who can get you out. We'll see what he does. We'll see what he does. Anthony Mays, is this what Kevin Warren, the Big Ten, was waiting on? Don't quite understand your question. Send me another one to explain. I don't understand that question. In regards to the Big Ten possibly expanding more, I think the Big Ten has hit that pause button. We announced on October 12th they hit that pause button. And now it's October 30th. Nothing has changed. We haven't heard nothing. Big Ten is going as is for now. If it changes, we'll let you know. Stick with us at Peek Around the Corner. But the pause button has definitely been pressed on expansion for Big Ten. But that doesn't mean that Oregon and Washington still doesn't have leverage in the Pac-12. That doesn't mean that Oregon and Washington are going to sign any deal with the Pac-12, because, heck, those two schools together could call the Big 12, right? We know that they were willing to take a deduction to come into the Big Ten. It still didn't work out, at least for now, but they have leverage. They have leverage. They're the monster brands remaining in the Big 12, in the Pac-12 right now. They're the valuable brands by far. And then you have to get into the question of, Will the Pac-12 look at an unequal revenue sharing distribution model inside the conference like ACC is looking at? Man, and that would make Pac-12 another powder keg. They're already a powder keg, right? Until they get the new deal signed, sealed, delivered, and announced, Pac-12 is just another powder keg here in the world of college sports. Matthew Carlson, nice to see you. Goodbye, Pac. Don't think the Pac's going away. Don't think the Pac's going away, but they'll get a deal signed here. But if it's truly 32 to 34 million per school, they did not do better than the Big 12. Even if they make $1 million more per school, not with the exposure deficit that they're going to be looking at versus the Big 12. Mountaineer, nice to see you. Non-equal revenue sharing is crazy. Going to be a lot of hurt feelings. Yes, a lot of hurt feelings. Coos Corner, hey Greg, keep up the good work. Thank you, Coos, my man. Appreciate it. Coos Corner, check his YouTube channel out. Great West Virginia YouTube channel. I know he's in despair because West Virginia lost. They played good. The Mountaineers played good against TCU. The Mountaineers don't have the horses in the secondary. I think Neil Brown missed out on a bunch of transfer portals. The guys didn't work out. He doesn't have the horses back there. I hope CJ Donaldson's okay. He got injured. I haven't heard. I've been so busy today. I don't know if he got a severe injury, if there was an ankle. But man, is he a good running back. And again, we're in this world of NIL. I hope West Virginia can keep that kid. But yeah, will Neil Brown be the head coach of West Virginia for the next game even? We shall see. We shall see. I think he's in a lot of trouble. I don't think he's going to be able to keep his job. I know there's people in the money perch in West Virginia that believe there's movement afoot. Me and Coos have talked about that. I think it's a very difficult situation. I think Lions is going to probably make a move. I do say, I saw Hugh Freeze made a huge 8-year contract with Liberty. I think that takes him out of the equation. I think, it's going to be a big buyout. Maybe an SEC school, maybe an Auburn would possibly give him a call and talk to him. But I think the dreams of a couple people in the West Virginia money perch wanting to target Hugh Freeze, wanting Lions to target Hugh Freeze, I think those dreams are pretty much dead now. Hugh Freeze, Liberty, he's got a good situation there. They got decent facilities. He's making big bucks. They're going to the Conference USA. They're going to be part of this, right, expanded playoff model, we think, right? Top 6 conference champions get an automatic berth to the tournament. Liberty could be one of those schools that make it to the conference football playoffs once every few years if they dominate Conference USA, which I think they very well could. So he's in a good spot. He wants to get to a Power 5 program if it's the right one. Anyways, let's get on to more questions. Mitch Daniels, outgoing Purdue. Daniel, thanks again for the great comment. Daniel, my brother from another mother says 18 or 20 was the goal, but they didn't have the votes. Yes, that was the goal. As we said on July 1st, the day after, it was announced that USC and UCLA were joining the Big Ten. We told you the schools that were targeted. We said Kevin Warren doesn't want to stop at 16. That was all true. He didn't want to stop at 16, but he didn't have the votes. He couldn't swing the deal. Not now anyways. Not for now. And that pause button's it's going to be pushed for a while. So we're just going to have to put that back in the closet for now. If anything pops, we'll let you know at Peek Around the Corner. Just like we did on March 31st when we said USC called the Big Ten and other stories that we have broken. But right now, in that decision window between August 15th and October 15th. Go or no go for launch. We told you that information in July, all through August, September, October. It was decided in that window. It's a no go for launch for further Big Ten expansion at this time. Okay. Mountaineer, Big 12 will have an advantage over the ACC and the Pac-12. Interesting. They will have some advantages, right? Some advantages. Some advantages. Big 12 exposure advantage over the Pac-12. Big 12 advantage over the ACC because they're going to do their next deal before the ACC is going to do their deal, right? This Big 12 deal is going to go on to about 2030, 2031. The current deal that ACC has with ESPN goes on to 2036. One of the advantages that the ACC has over the Big 12 is the ACC network. They actually get some cold, hard cash from the ACC network. Each school makes about $4 million off that third tier media money. Big 12 doesn't make much money from ESPN Plus. Now, we did get I asked a question on Twitter and got an answer from a few media members. Is the ESPN Plus Big 12 now, is that part of this deal that the Big 12 just agreed to with Fox and ESPN? And the answer was yes. The answer was yes. So the ESPN Plus money is just rolled into this Tier 1, Tier 2 media contract, okay? So there's no separate bucket of revenue for ESPN Plus. Currently, Big 12 schools don't make much money from the Big 12. The Big 12 schools don't make much money from ESPN Plus. They just make enough revenue to pay for the production of most of the live content that you see on ESPN Plus. The softball games, the baseball games, whatever the sport is. So it's not really a money maker for those Big 12 schools. It's very good for exposure because people have access to ESPN Plus. You have to pay for it, but it's exposure throughout the country. But the revenue's not there. Big 12 schools don't get revenue. They're not tied into the subscription base of the ESPN Plus. Doesn't matter how many eyeballs are on it. They just basically get a flat fee. And that's probably how it is going forward. Just enough money to help pay for the production of most of that live content that's on ESPN Plus. Some of the live content is not paid by the schools, the production of it. The football games and other big events like conference championship stuff. But a lot of it is. So ACC actually produces extra revenue for those ACC schools. Now, even with that $44 million a year that those ACC schools get from the ACC network, even if you add that to their paltry $20 million, $18 million they get in their Tier 1, Tier 2 money, all the way to 2036, it still is not going to equal what Big 12 is going to get in this new deal. But we want to be accurate here, peek around the corner. ACC network pays out more money to the ACC schools than the ESPN Plus Big 12 now gives to the Big 12 schools. But they have it all now in just one big bucket, right? So whatever the conference payouts, so let's say it's $31 million for each Big 12 school, and you tack on about $14 million for NCAA tourneys, bowl games, playoffs. Let's say you get more money because of expanded playoffs. Let's say you're in that 55, 56, 57. Let's say it's $60 million per 55, 56, 60 million per school for Big 12 conference payouts going forward. It won't be that plus ESPN Plus money, which is paltry. So it's all in one bucket. Okay, just wanted to be accurate, wanted to be clear with that. Daniel says, Amazon is flush with cash, and a dip in the common shares won't keep them from spending, with returns being the goal. The only company with more cash on hand is Apple. Yeah, Apple is gigantic. It's even bigger than Amazon. Yeah, they did take a dip there in their stock. But yeah, Amazon doesn't really do anything that, they treat each deal independently like all these big companies do. They don't want to make any deal that they're going to lose money on. They want to make sure they make money on, if they go into the college football space, they want to make sure they actually make money in that space. They're just not going to hand over money. That's what, like Hidden Hawaiian just said. Good comment. Doesn't mean Amazon wants to spend that on a product that isn't going to pull in money for them. Exactly. That's not how these big corporations work, especially in the media field. They're not going to. Now, they're going to pay, like they try to pay more for Big Ten than CBS and NBC did, because they knew they had to get a shot at the Big Ten content because of the exposure question. But they're not going to just sign a big old check over the Pac-12 just to get into the college football space. It has to work for them as well. They have to make some money on it, right? They have to have advertisers willing to spend money on Amazon. The whole model has to work for Amazon for them to make a profit, or they're not going to do a deal with the Pac-12. Gregory Krug, hypothetical. If the 14 playoffs are Georgia, Tennessee, Michigan, and Ohio State, do you think that the string pullers will make sure that both semifinals will have each representative for ratings? No, I don't. I think I know a lot of you guys are probably going, boy, is he naive? I think the college football ranking committee, they're just going to try to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and however it works, it works. Because they're going to have to explain themselves. I don't think they're going to do that. If Georgia and Tennessee plays each other, a 1 seed and a 4 seed in the first round, then that's just how it's going to be. Going forward in the expanded college football playoffs, they're definitely not going to think about that, right? Because there's still going to be a college football playoff committee that decides those rankings, irregardless of the 6 top conference champions. Those other 6 at-large bids, the playoff committee is going to decide that and rank them, and they're not going to say, we can't have 5th-ranked Alabama playing 12th-ranked Mississippi State in the playoffs because they're in the same conference, so therefore we're going to adjust it. I don't think they're going to do that. They're just going to rank them, and however it plays out, it plays out. Maybe I'm being naive. Let me know in the comment section if you think I'm being extremely naive. I don't think they're going to worry about that. They got enough to worry about. Roy McManama. Can't never say your last name, Roy. I apologize. Thanks for the question. Thanks for coming in the house. MLB has a focus group because they are losing exposure to cord cutting. They are carried on regional sports networks, and those are getting cut fastest. Yes, they are. Those regional networks are being cut left and right. Lee. Can't see Amazon overpaying because they don't have any competition for their content. Yeah, again, how many people are going to be bidding now? Now, the number's been set for the Big 12, right? The number is there. $380 million per year. $31.6 million per school. The number's there. Now, who's going to compete for the Pac-12, knowing that the Pac-12 isn't going to take any less than $31.6 million per school? right? So 10 schools, Pac-12, they're not going to take anything less than $320 million. So per year. So the combination of the potential media partners, ESPN, Amazon, you know now that you're going to have to come in with a $320 million deal, probably more, right? The number's been set. Now, how many bidders can come in? How many bidders can the Pac-12 get in to the negotiating table and say, okay, now what can you give us? If there isn't many, if there's only ESPN and Amazon, do you think Amazon's going to fork over the money needed for the Pac-12 to get to that $32, $33, $34 million per school, as Joe Kazana said here in his article today? I don't know. I'd rather be in Big 12's position, get the deal done, have the best exposure, $31.6 million, work on that next contract 6 years from now, get as many eyeballs on your product as possible, have a chance for that fourth window, expand possibly. You have the pro rata clause in your contract. You got Big 12 basketball on Fox Sports. I'd rather be in the Big 12 shoes. Let me know if you think I'm out of bounds. Let me know if you think I'm nuts. I don't think I am. I think Yormark has a hidden incentive to get this deal done as well. To stay on the good side of Fox, and knowing he's got a chance, an opportunity to shake the tree, depending on how this thing goes. Shake the tree to see if he can expand that conference, because he wants to get all the way to that extra time zone out west. I'm talking to you, San Diego State. I'm talking to you. Think about this. The perfect storm. The perfect storm of San Diego State. If you would have said a year ago, if you would have said Big Ten was going to poach the Pac-12 and grab UCLA and USC, but only two of them, only two Pac-12 schools. So the Pac-12 survives. And that the Big 12 would come in with 4 new additions and be in the position to where they're making at least as much money now as they were in the previous contract with Oklahoma and Texas, and be in the position to get their deal done before the Pac-12, and they have a carrot dangling over the Pac-12 schools. All of this is the perfect storm for San Diego State. I'm not saying it's for sure that San Diego State's going to be able to get that Power 5 conference invite to the Pac-12 and Big 12, but my goodness, this is the perfect storm for them to make it happen. Everything is lining up for them. The fear for Big 12 even have the ability, the Big 12 for them in October 30th, 2022, for them to even have the ability to have serious discussions with San Diego State to say, hey, we want to go all the way west. For there to be a Big 12 commissioner that wants to expand all the way to that fourth window, to have a deal signed with Fox and ESPN, where Fox and ESPN knows the wishes of Brett Yormark. And Brett Yormark says his institutions are fully aligned in back of him, all willing to sign the grant of rights. You have all these things lining up for San Diego State, for the Pac-12 to at least have some fear that the Big 12 is going to come through the back window and take San Diego State. I don't know if we're going to get the San Diego State question answered until this gets answered. I would guess no on that. I would say there has to be some conclusion to this question before we get to the San Diego State question. And I think I'm going to be doing a whole episode on that earlier here next week, because the dominoes that we often talk about in conference realignment, conference expansion, TV contracts, the domino effect, we always start with the biggest domino. The biggest domino in March was USC, and we tried to express that Some people listened, most people didn't. USC was the big domino. You know what the big domino piece is now that has to first fall? Is this one. Is that one. Once that falls, and how it falls will largely determine how the San Diego State Aztec piece falls, the Four Corner Schools falls. But that big domino, the big one that we need to see how it falls, when it falls, this is it. That's it. That's the big elephant in the room. The big elephant domino. That's the one. Lots of questions I will not be getting to tonight. I apologize. Mountaineer. Seems like ESPN and Fox have granted permission for open season on the Pac-12 schools. I don't know if it's granted permission, but it's given Brett Yormark some oxygen to be able to push the envelope on it. You know, it gives him the ability to have pen on paper, and to show some figures to those Four Corner Schools and the San Diego State. There's an opportunity now. An opportunity now that wouldn't exist for Yormark if he waited 16 months, 18 months from now. And that is something that the Pac-12 writers, for whatever reason, won't put their pen down on paper on and write about. If Yormark would have waited, he wouldn't have been able to expand if it happens. Now he has the opportunity to do so. It might present itself to him. It might be able to get done now. And again, largely has to do with how this gets answered. Okay, Money Vision. Discovery, Warner Brothers still needs to trim $1 to $2 billion. Interesting. I know they've been trimming. I know they've been cutting. I know they're investing heavily. I think they're going to do a new contract with that AEW wrestling company with Tony Khan. We shall see. Jamie Thornton, those two bozo Pac-12 reports are insane. First of all, they have 10 schools and won't even make as much per school. On top of that, they won't be on ESPN and Fox. Good luck with that Prime subscription. I do think they're going to have to be on ESPN or Fox, probably ESPN. Pac-12 cannot make a deal without being on ESPN. So they're going to be on there somewhere. I generally like reading what Casano and Wilner says. It's nice to get their perception of things. They were way off on the UCLA situation. I try to warn them. I'm not going to say how I did. I mentioned in an episode. I did. Wilner actually had one of my questions in a mailbag because I was trying to warn him, and they didn't know it was coming. I think they're behind the curve, right? They're not taking a peek around the corner. They're not watching this show, that's for sure. But they're not bozos. They've been around for a long time. They've given us a lot of great information over the years. I wouldn't call them bozos. Movie Time Blues. From the Journal and Courier, Carmen. Are we on a path where the athletes will be basically receiving money from the athletic department? Part of that TV money? Are we headed down that path? Yes, we are headed on that path. And we talked about it in episode 1 at Peek Around the Corner. If you're new to this channel, go back to Peek Around the Corner, episode 1. We're at episode 83 today. It's the manifesto. It's our manifesto describing the changes that are coming around the corner, the peak around the corner. Student athletes are going to be more and more heavily compensated by their conferences and schools, and that's why USC called the Big Ten. That's why Texas and Oklahoma called the SEC. That's why Oregon and Washington, if they had their If they could, they would join the Big Ten right now at a discount. That's why, right there. We are headed that way. And Florida State knows that. Clemson knows that. Miami of Florida knows that. That's why they're talking about non-equal revenue sharing. There's going to be direct deposit, direct money coming from the conference, school, to the student athletes. Separate from NIL. Don't know how it's going to exactly work. Don't know if it's going to be a conference-wide NIL. Doesn't know. But there's going to be definite sponsorship. There's going to be more money going to the student athletes, more compensation. And that's why the chase for the top dollar, getting above the stratification line, was so important for USC. That's why they made the call to the Big Ten. We explained that for 3 months before it was announced. Pac-12 reporters were not aware of it. We tried to make them aware of it. We sent out the word. Definitely, change is coming. We think we have gone through big changes in the last couple of years. We have. It ain't nothing like what we're going to see in the next 3 to 4 years. Nothing like it. It's going to be major changes still happening. Steven Snook, thanks for joining coming in. Longhorn Network, what does ESPN decide to do with it? I think they're dumping it. The Longhorn Network really isn't even a network. I mean, it is and it isn't. It has its own distribution model, its own subscription base, but it didn't have its own cameras. It didn't have its own production trucks. All that was ESPN. They just slapped the Longhorn Network on the production trucks. Longhorn Network was put together with chicken wire and tape, duct tape. It really wasn't. That's why when people say, well, maybe years ago they said, well, Big 12 could get a conference network. You just have to switch the Longhorn Network into the Big 12 network. That was never reality. Longhorn Network wasn't really a network. It didn't have the infrastructure at all. So it's easily going to go by the wayside. Longhorn Network will not be, it will be gone. Thanks, Movie Time Blues, for you're putting down Daniels, what he said, the president of Purdue. Appreciate it. I'll have to look at it. I'll have to look at it. But right now, we're going to close this live show up. We appreciate you all coming here. Live show, Peek Around the Corner. It's been a great evening. Lots of big news. Stick with us at Peek Around the Corner. Stick with us. There's lots of things coming down. This Big 12 deal got done. It got done. Yormark has the advantage. Pac-12 is going to have to get a deal done soon. And this is the question. This is the question. College football expanded playoff revenue distribution model. When does it get decided? It has to get decided soon if we're going to have the playoffs in 2024. And which way does it go? Which way does it go? Does it continue the same system where each Power 5 conference gets the same amount of money distributed to them? Or is it going to be arranged depending on how big your conference is, how many members? Will the SEC and the Big Ten actually agree on a distribution model of the new college football playoff distribution model that will award the Pac-12 schools each more money because they only have 10 members? It's all going to be decided real soon. Again, thank you. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much.